Guten Tag, hallo, willkommen, liebe Gäste, liebe Zuschauer hier auf der Frankfurter Buchmesse. Sorry, I have to change to English. I forgot it actually. I'm a little bit nervous. I'm very, very pleased to welcome Antonio Munoz Molina here at the Frankfurt Book Fair, one of the most important and awarded Spanish authors, member of the Royal Spanish Academy, have been living in New York City for many, many years. And yesterday night, Mr. Molina did the opening speech for the book fair because the guest land is Spain, and Spain used to be the guest land 30 years ago. And Mr. Molina did some remarkable remarks about how deeply, how profoundly Spain has changed in these last 30 years. And Mr. Molina, I would like to ask you to tell us a little bit more about these changes. What makes Spain so different within these 30 years?
Hello, thanks for coming, thanks for your attention. Well, I must tell you, in 1991, Spain had already changed a lot because we already had enjoyed 15 years of democracy, and we had been part of the European Union for 5 years, no? But still, we were at the beginning of our mature democracy, no? So we were full of hope, and there were a number of things that have become real at the time, no? But afterwards, in these 31 years, so many things have changed, especially, I'll give you an example. You had to compare the number of women writers who were invited at the book fair in 1991 and to the number that are this year, no? So something has changed in Spain very deeply, and I think that along with the rest of many places in Europe, no, we have become a far more diverse society, no? I mean, in 91, writer usually meant male writer, no? I mean, there were women writers, but most of writers were men, no? This has changed absolutely, no? So now there is and there is a second thing. There is a new generation that was born back then that now have become writers in their own sense. So in a sense, in this book fair, there is a full new generation of young people writing and telling their stories, no? And there's a second element, which is that in these 31 years, we have admitted 7.2 million of immigrants. No? People don't think of Spain as an immigrant society, as an immigrant, as a diverse society, but it has become so, and very, very widely so. So we have 7 more million people from all over the world, mostly from Latin America, from Eastern Europe, from Morocco, from Africa. So everything has changed so fast. This is the beautiful part, no? The more difficult part is that many things are now more difficult and more insecure, no? For example, jobs for young people, the cost of living, and the general uncertainties of this new century, no? So many exciting changes have taken place over these years, no? And I, as a writer and as a citizen, I am a happy witness to that, no?
That's a very beautiful saying, a happy witness. So you are full of optimism in a way, and you love to witness these changes. They inspire you. Do I get that right?
Yes, because nowadays it's very easy to grow dark, no? To go pessimistic, no? Because we are suffering very difficult times, no? Terrible things are happening. But you have to bear in mind that I have the point of view of someone who learned that the future could be much better than the past, no? I mean, when I was a teenager, when I was a young man, at the end of the dictatorship in Spain, nobody was able to foresee that Spain would become a progressive, open democracy. No, it was almost unthinkable. No, but then things changed. No, I remember when I was a child, Spain was a society absolutely controlled by the Catholic Church. There was no divorce. There was no, I mean, everything was under the spell of the church. Now we have gay marriage. We have had divorce for almost 50 years. So we have so much progress. And many things are, I insist, many things keep to be difficult and negative, but I have had the chance in my lifetime of seeing how things can solidly improve, no? And this is also important to bear in mind, no?
This is very encouraging to hear, actually, because in Germany, many people are now very, very pessimistic, but I love your point of view and this view on Spain. We want to talk about your new book, Mr. Molina, Days Without Cecilia, but before I get more into it, we are sitting here in a kitchen, and you lived a long time in New York City. What are the differences between American kitchens and Spanish kitchens, and which one do you like more?
Well, there is a huge difference. And the difference is that in a Spanish kitchen, we actually cook. No, you see American kitchens in films. No, it is incredibly shiny and everything, but I don't know what is the point of having this kitchen. No, we love to cook. No, so and this beautiful. No, I remember during the pandemic. No, in the lockdown. No, my wife and I, part of our life was to cook, to have time to cook for ourselves, and it's not only cooking, but having meals and meeting with the family gathering. So a kitchen is a very important place.
The story is about a man who moved from New York City to Lisbon, and he's waiting for his wife, Cecilia, who still works in New York. The narrator is making incredible efforts to make the new apartment in Lisbon look exactly like the one in New York. What is the motivation of this kind of obsession?
Well, you need a refuge. No, you need, at the beginning of the novel, there is a quotation by Montaigne. No? It says, il faut cacher sa vie. No? You need a place, you need a safe place, you need a safe, beautiful place, to live your life. No? So, and also, he doesn't want to lose what he has had. No? So he has lost a city, a house, and he's trying to reinvent it. No? He's trying to make it new. No? He's trying to keep his own life as unchanged as it was. No? So this is quite impossible. No? So there is most of the novel came to my imagination when I moved from New York to Lisbon, and I had gone to the other side of the ocean, and I ended up living nearby a river, the Tagus River. In New York, I lived along the Hudson River. In New York, I saw from my windows, I saw the George Washington Bridge. And in Lisbon, I saw from my windows the 25th April Bridge, which is this beautiful bridge. So there were so many similar things. There was a kind of resonance, like a symmetry. And that sense, that feeling of being away, but at the same time, reminiscing about the things you have left behind. This somehow was in my mind when the novel came to my imagination.
There is one character in your novel I really loved. His name is Alexis the handyman. He constantly solves problems for the narrator, who is obviously helpless when it comes to nails and hammer. You describe Alexis like a Marvel hero, equipped with very smart tools and supernatural powers. Do you admire handymen?
Absolutely. I admire everyone who does something beautifully. No, I mean, doing things well, no? In any field, you do them. A moment ago, we were talking about kitchens, no? I mean, doing a great meal, building a table, no? I admire, perhaps because I'm not very good with my hands, no? So I admire people who have a way with their hands, no? Who are able to make things, to fix things, no? This is something I deeply admire, much as I admire painters or sculptors, no? People who work with their hands, no? My job is too abstract, no? I mean, you're dealing with words. You're dealing with air, with nothing, no? And so I admire people who work with their hands, with this beautiful wisdom about the hands, no? Especially in a world where everything is becoming digital and touchless, no? So doing things, no? So I deeply admire that. I find a great poetry in that.
Cecilia, the woman he's waiting for, is a neurobiologist doing research on the way memories and fears are processed in human brains. But she is unable to speak about her own fears and memories caused by the traumatic experience of 9/11 in New York City. Why is there such a deep gap between the scientific insights we do have and the emotional coping with one's traumata?
Well, because one of the deepest brain networks there is the one related with fear and memory, no? I mean, fear is a primal instinct, no? It's the instinct that teaches you how to fight or flight, no? So trauma is directly connected with fear, with some part of the brain. and so for me, as a writer, which is attractive about neuroscience, is that neuroscientists are dealing with some of the same issues we as writers are dealing with, no? For example, how do you remember things? What are the mechanisms of memory? How do you make up your stories? How the brain is always, all the time, making up stories, no? We need to, in order to understand the world, we need two things. We need to tell stories, to tell ourselves stories, and we need to find patterns. No?
The narrator too suffers from deep anxieties. For example, when he's losing his sense of orientation while jogging through Lisbon, obviously not for the first time. He wouldn't talk about his fears with Cecilia. Instead, he's reading the memories of Admiral Byrd, a polar researcher who lived for 6 months alone in darkness and cold. So I'm asking myself, do you want to say that we are all kind of prisoners of our fears and anxieties because they can't talk about their fears? And he retreats into this literature of a deeply lost person.
Well, it is so. Anxiety, maybe, is the most difficult issue that we are able to deal with, no? Because for me, as much as for the character, there is something I'm always afraid, always that gives me anxiety, which is the fear of getting lost. No? I think this is a primal fear. No, when we are children, we are wired not to get lost, no? So he, my main character, my narrator, is always on the brink of getting absolutely lost. Because getting lost is easier than we think. No, we only need some tiny, very tiny changes in our brains, and we lose our sense of time and space. No? We take for granted space and time, the moment in time we are in, and the moment and the place in space we are in. Imagine here, no? This place. This is anxiety itself, no? And this is the primal fears we have, no? So it is very easy. It is very easy to get lost, to get irretrievably lost, no? Far easier than we think, no? And when I was writing the novel, I was trying to tell the story of someone who, step by step, is getting lost. Step by step, lost in space, lost in time, because he's confused between yesterday and now, between New York and Lisbon, between one apartment and the other, and he's obsessed with his wife, no? And he's always expecting her to arrive, no? At any moment, no? Since the very first lines of the novel, no?
This is very, very intriguing and fascinating for the reader to follow the narrator step by step, and also the reader gets lost. He doesn't know exactly, does Cecilia exist? Where is he? Will she ever come and show up? And so that's and it's very, very slowly the way we get down and get lost. There is one character, Don, the gay friend, Don Morrison from New York City, who is visiting our narrator in Lisbon. And you write, and he's a very smart person and a very lovely person. You write, being American means to be afraid of nothing. Is that the way you perceive Americans, having no fears, no anxieties?
Well, they have a lot of fears. I must tell you something. When you mentioned the reader is trying to find out what will happen, whether Cecilia will come or not. This was something that was happening to me while I was writing, because the story was, I was learning, I was making up as I went along. No, I was trying to guess what came next by writing it. I didn't have a plot. I didn't have a blueprint for the novel. No, this is not the way it works for me. No, I have a starting point, and I try to figure out, to guess what will come. No, so I really didn't know what might happen. No, and what I tried to do was to offer the reader kind of traces or kind of hints in order to try to find what comes next. No, this is the oldest trick in the trade. No, you have to attract the attention of the reader. No, but you were asking me about this Don, the character. No, I try to be a very realistic author. I love to portrait, to draw good portraits. No, reliable portraits of people. No, and there is something about Americans, especially when they are abroad. No, Americans abroad don't have any fear, because they have the dollar, they have the CIA, they have the State Department, no? They have their embassies. No, so they are so. Then they are as full of anxieties as you and I. No, but they have this thing that I admire. No, to get to a place and rent a car and find your way. I am so clumsy in my personal life. I cannot do anything. So I cannot do anything in practical ways. No. So when I see people, no, dealing with reality with this kind of, no, strength, I deeply admire and almost regret them.
Yeah. And you also describe that they make business out of fear. There is this really funny chapter where you describe at a party he meets a real estate hype, a new real estate hype, estates with premium long-term survival properties in the desert of Nevada. So this guy is making money with the fear of people that maybe an atomic bomb will come down, or maybe climate change will force us out of our houses, and they rent these long-term properties. And it seems to me that the narrator is kind of fascinated and how great this is, but also it's, my God, how can you make a deal and money with this fear?
This is a real line of business. Yeah. I mean, this is a they are getting richer and richer with this. This is booming. No, this business
in the United States.
Yes, mostly in the United States, this character and this situation was inspired by an article I read in the Financial Times. So, and so there is a very serious specialty in real estate, no, for very rich people. They call it the preps or something like that, no? So they help you find isolate islands, for example, islands out of the way in far off New Zealand, for example, no? They adapt and they renew all nuclear silos, nuclear refuges underground. For example, underground in London, I think that 40 feet down, there is a huge complex of refuge, a special refuge that were built during the Cold War in order for the government to find refuge in case of a nuclear attack. No? So all these places are being refurbished and sold, and are being sold to very rich people. No? And you have even windows for virtual reality. I mean, this is very well developed. And it sounds like science fiction, right? It sounds like something from Don DeLillo, but it is real.
And did you ever think about moving into such kind of apartment because you suffer from fears? Or is this not the kind of answer that would, is it not the kind of refuge that would help you?
Well, I think Lisbon will do for me. But this is, you know, rich people, very, very rich people, no, are so different from you and me, no? No, they want to be, they are funding research in order to extend their lifetimes beyond 100 years, no? So they want this sense of safety, of owning, controlling everything, no? And I insist. When I read this piece in the Financial Times, I thought this is like science fiction, no, but it's real. So it tells you about the situation of the world.
In a way, your book offers a completely different way. We lose control, the writer loses control, the narrator, we as a reader, because we get lost. Is it a good feeling to get lost? Can it be encouraging?
Well, you know what Walter Benjamin said, that you have, in order to know a city, you have to learn how to get lost in it, no? So there are ways and ways. We need, for example, in order to find a good story, to write a story, you have to somehow get lost. It has happened to me a lot, no? When sometimes I have an idea for a book, for a novel, or for a story, no? And I think that I know everything about it, but what happens is that I know too much about it. So when you know too much about the story, it's no good. So you need to get a little lost, no? As I told you at the beginning of this novel, no? I had failed in a previous project I was working on, no? And then I found this tiny beginning, no? This tiny first line, first sentence in a book, no? And I tried to follow up. And that's how I found my way.
The narrator has a habit of reading everywhere, in the subway, during break, at work, at home. And Dan Morrison, the nice American guy, called this habit the quick fix of poetry. I think it's a very beautiful idea. Can you describe how it works, the quick fix of poetry?
Well, it comes from a period, the first years I spent in New York. I was director of Instituto Cervantes in New York, no? So for 2 years, I almost didn't have time for myself, no? So I was used to have my whole time to me, no? And for my writing, my reading, my strolling. And suddenly I found myself working from 9 to 8 in the evening, having to take the subway, a very crowded subway at 8 in the morning, and I was starving because I needed my usual doses of reading, and I was unable to do it, no? And so I found that poetry was more interesting for me at the time, because in poetry, I mean, you read a poem, and that's that, no, and you have the full experience of reading in a state of great concentration. No? So I read poems in the subway. I learned poems by heart, which is a great way of owning the poetry. No? So that's why I came to enjoy so much. It was like a smoker, no? Like a smoker who has no time, so he drags a moment before entering a place. No, he sucks the cigarette anxiously and then throws it away. No, it happened to me. No, the subway was my reading room. No, and in the subway was easier to read a poem. No, and to learn it by heart, and to being able to tell it to yourself in silence. No.
Can you share one of your quick fixes with us? One of the poems? Can you share it with us?
Yes.
Oh, please.
For example, I'll let me think of it.
Hopefully your
there
memory.
is a great poem by Jorge Manrique, no, a Spanish poet. I'll tell you a poem by Borges, a Borges sonnet, no?
Sorry,
Yes.
I don't get it.
Jorge Luis Borges, the Argentinian poet and writer, no? The beginning of a sonnet by poet, no? By Borges. Says, las translúcidas manos del judío labran en la penumbra los cristales, y la tarde que muere es miedo y frío. Las tardes a las tardes son iguales. This is 4 lines, but you can repeat them to yourself eternally, no?
And they give you a sense of being home?
Sure. I mean, you are with your book on your pocket, no? And you read in the subway or wherever. You sit down at a bench at a park, no? And you are fully at home, no? This is great, no?
Mr. Molino, I thank you very much for sharing these thoughts and with us. We are for our shared apartment kitchen and the refrigerator, we want to take a picture of you and put it to all the other great authors we made interviews with today. So I thank you very, very much for this talk, and wish you a great days here on the Frankfurt Book Fair. Thank you.
Pleasure, my pleasure.